Cross+1 is one of the most important tools for improving beyond sub 12 on 3x3. But before you start learning it, here are a few things you need to make sure you already know. First of all, you want to make sure your cross solutions are as close to optimal as possible. I have this website right here, which I'll link in the description, Cross to F2L Transition by Christian Vaughn. What you can do is set the difficulty of your cross. If you do white cross, you'd want to make sure you have white on top. And usually I just do green front because that's the standard. But then level 1 would be cross requires 1 move to solve, and so on. You want to make sure even at the 6 or 7 moves, you're able to solve it in that amount of moves. And then second of all, hopefully this is kind of obvious, but by this point you should be able to one-look all of your F2L solutions. So I'll just use the red-blue pair as an example. You need to not pair it up and then think, okay, I gotta do U prime and then do this. You just have to do it all in one look so that you could look ahead to the next pair. Now that you're ready to start learning Cross+1, there's a few drills that I would recommend starting with. If you go back to the Christian Vaughn website from before, and again, I'll link that in the description. For the first drill, I would set the difficulty to level 6. I know that might be more difficult than you're ready for actually figuring out where the first pair is going to be, but this is going to be a little bit easier. If you want to follow along, that's the scramble that I'm using, and in this case I can solve the cross in 6 moves using R prime F, D prime, R2, D prime, R prime. All I'm going to do is pick a pair, so I'll just pick this pair because that's the one that's right in front of me, and just watch it as I do the cross, keeping track of all the changes. So R prime, F, and now I do the F, this corner moves up, D prime, R2, and then this is still where it is, D prime, and R prime. In that case, only 1 move actually affected this, so it was pretty easy to trace. But basically, you would want to repeat that process with a bunch of different 6-move scrambles, and just watch the F2L pair, whichever F2L pair that you choose as you go through the cross, and make sure you keep your eyes on it move by move. Once you feel like you've got a good handle on that, the next drill that you can do is go back and go to level 3, one that's a little bit simpler, and here's the drill. You can follow along if you'd like. I can solve this cross in 3 moves using U prime, R2, F, and in this case I have a free pair, so I want to try tracing that. And now I actually do want to figure out exactly where the F2L pair will be. To do the tracing in this case, I would go move by move and think about what happens to the pair when I do that move. The first move is U prime, and that doesn't do anything. And then I do an R2, which will move the pair up here, and the white corner will be over here. And then I do a F move, but since the pieces are right here, F doesn't do anything. Now that I've imagined where this pair will be, I have to think about how I'm going to solve it. What I would do is U prime to bring it right here, and I would be doing a cube rotation this way at the same time, and then R prime, U2, R would insert it in the back. You can put a blindfold on if you want, but I actually recommend not doing that so that you can see for yourself if your proposed solution was actually correct. Once you do the cross, you can confirm that yes, this is where the pair was, and you can solve it using that algorithm that you came up with. And eventually, you want to be able to know, even on the 7-move crosses, exactly where your F2L pair will be when you finish cross, and exactly how to solve it. Once you are able to plan first pair and inspection, the next step, what I would call the intermediate level of Cross+1 planning, is being able to plan the best first pair, not just a first pair. I've set up this scramble, which is just that one right there. The first thing you want to do is to trace all the corners and only proceed with the ones that you know will end up in the top layer. In general, it'll be a very quick way to narrow down which is the best one to start with. And the solution is going to be L prime, B prime, R, F, D2, F2. I'll just go one by one and trace all these corners. I'll start with the red-green one since that's kind of in front of me. So when I do the L prime, that doesn't do anything. B prime R moves the white to right here. F, D2, F2 doesn't do anything. So this white corner will end up in the top layer. Then I would move on to green orange. When I do L prime and then B prime R F, then this corner will go up to here and then the F moves it down here. After I do the D2 and the F2, it'll still be in the bottom layer. Then for the orange blue corner, L prime moves it up to here, B prime R F, and F moves it to right here, and then D2, F2 moves it down into the bottom layer. Then last is the blue-red corner, and when I do the L prime, it moves down to here, and then the B prime moves it up to here, R, F, D2, F2, and it stays right here. So it'll be the green-red and the blue-red. From there, I want to figure out where the edge will go for those two corners. This is what it'll look like when I'm done. I think these pairs, both the green-red and red-blue, are both not super great, but I would go with green-red. That's my preference because I can solve it like that without rotating and have a back left slot solved. There will often be cases like that where you have to make a choice out of which is the best first pair. But the main idea is that you are able to narrow it down to a small selection and choose which one is right for you. Moving on to what I would call the advanced level of Cross+1 is knowing when to use alternate cross solutions. Here I have 3 examples where I'm going to go through my thought process of whether I would use an alternate solution or whether I would just solve the first pair normally. Starting with the first one. And one of the first things I notice on this scramble is there's a free pair on yellow, so I'm definitely thinking about going with yellow. But before that, I will just see what my cross solution would normally be. So in this case, I would probably do L, D prime L, and then R2, F, R, and that would solve the cross. The only issue is after I do the L, D prime L, the free pair ends up right here. And then when I do the R2, F, R, the F moves the corner up here, and then the R moves it over here, and it's not a free pair anymore. So I'll go ahead and show that. If I were to do the R2, F, R right now, it ends up right here. So instead, all I have to do is add a U move, and then I can solve the last 2 cross pieces normally, and now I have a free pair. In that case, I would definitely say it's worth it to go with the alternate solution since all you have to do is add 1 move and you get a free pair. On to the second scramble. And on this one, I'm noticing that if I do an L prime, this corner matches up with this edge, and I can easily make it into an X cross just by doing R prime, F, R prime. And the edge is right here that I can just solve at any time, and that would create an X cross. Normally, if I were just ignoring that pair, I think I would do R prime, FR, and then L prime. So the only difference from the cross I would normally do is I do the L prime first, and then the R prime, F, R prime, and then I essentially get like a pseudo free pair because I just insert the edge in 3 moves, and that solves first pair. So in this case, I would say it is definitely better to go with the alternate solution rather than the slightly more finger trick friendly one, since it makes first pair so much easier. And finally, moving on to the third scramble. And pretty quickly, I'm noticing this free pair on yellow. I'm going to look at the cross and see if there's a easy way to preserve this. And I'm not really seeing anything. I guess if I were to force myself to preserve this, I would do something like this. L prime, U prime, L prime, B, U, and then that. And it's a 9-move solution, but you do have the free pair right there. In a real solve, I would look at this for maybe 3 seconds and realize that there's no good way to easily preserve it with cross, and then I would move on. The normal cross solution that I would have done is FB, L prime R at the same time, F2, D, L, D2. That actually does create a free pair here, which is kind of funny, and it preserves it. So I'll just go ahead and go through it. And I can even insert that with fat F moves. Basically, the lesson here is if the free pair is really hard to preserve, it's usually just better to go with your standard cross solution and see what your best pair is from there. And that'll end up likely lowering your move count, if not also just having better finger tricks and having something that's easier to plan ahead. I have one final note that I'd like to add. One thing I see a lot of people struggle with as they're learning and implementing Cross+1 is as they're solving their first pair, they can only focus on solving the first pair. So as soon as they finish, they have this huge pause before second pair because they weren't able to actually look ahead. My suggestion, and I actually do this in my own solves, is I will pick what my second pair will be during inspection. Even if I can't plan out what the second pair will be to the point that I could solve it blindfolded during inspection, I at least know what it's going to be. I'll show what I mean using this scramble as an example. And I'll go ahead and show what that looks like after I were to finish the cross. So I have the blue-orange pair and the red-blue pair, which are both pretty good to start with. I would just start with the red-blue pair since I can solve that into the back left, and that's the best slot to solve first in general. And all I have to remember is that the blue-orange pair was the other good pair that I could have started with, and that means that blue-orange will be my second pair. I'm deciding that right now. And as it turns out, it is a decent pair. And now, you won't always get the best second pair based on that planning, but you will always have a pair that you can go with for your second pair, and it'll be a lot easier to look ahead if you have a specific pair in mind and you know where to look for it. And those are all the tips that I have for learning and mastering Cross+1. I hope these were all helpful. I hope it wasn't super overwhelming. I know this was kind of a long one, but thank you very much for watching, and let me know if you have any feedback or suggestions.